بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أمير المؤمنين. صلى الله عليك يا إمام المتقين يا مظلوم يا شهيد المحراب. جعلنا الله من شيعتك ورزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتك وفي الآخرة شفاعتك. قال مولانا الإمام أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام لكميل: يا كميل، إن هذه القلوب أوعية وخيرها أوعاها. صدق مولانا أمير المؤمنين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Everything in this universe that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala occupies a materialistic dimension and has a materialistic dimension. The human being, for example, you find somebody, how much does he weigh, or how big he is or she is, that's how much space he or she occupies, or volume he or she occupies. And this goes all the way down to the atomic scale. Even the electrons, people at the time were doubtful. They didn't know, are they materials or are they something abstract? Until science advanced and developed, they managed to actually not only figure out that it is material, it also has a charge. You realize an electron carries what kind of a charge? A negative charge. And physicists came and started developing theories on the probability of where do you find an electron in the nucleus. So there are theories about finding the electron. That means it occupies space. This is something material. So everything occupies a materialistic space. When it comes to humans, in addition to the materialistic space and volume, there is another dimension. And that is called the dimension of the character of the individual. His capacity of accepting things and holding on to things. We have the initial capacity, the materialistic capacity. This we can determine, we can measure in volume, we can measure in length, we can measure in weight. We can measure this. That is the materialistic capacity of things. But when it comes to the character, the capacity of the heart, How do you measure that? That we can see reflected in the person's actions. The materialistic capacity is known as as-sa'atu al-dharfiyyah, al-maddiyyah. The materialistic one. The other one is as-sa'atu al-ma'nawiyyah, which means the heart. How do you determine? You see the characters, you see the behavior, and that will be a reflection of what capacity this individual has. Amir المؤمنين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه refers to this in Nahj al-Balagha when he takes Kumail to the cemetery in the desert, and he tells him, Ya Kumail, إن هذه القلوب أوعية وخيرها أوعاها. These hearts are containers, and the best of them is the one that can contain the most. Now, is he referring to the materialistic heart, this organ that pumps blood through the whole body? No. So what is he referring to? He's referring to the character of the individual. The more the character of the individual can accommodate, the greater the personality will be. And hence you find Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam being at the pinnacle of this perfection. His heart can accommodate the most. And then he passed his knowledge on to Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And that was passed, of course, to Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim, the 14 ma'sumeen. They have that capacity. And people who come after them, whether companions or later people, depends how much degree they have of this capacity. That will be a reflection of their closeness to Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. That is their degree. When you have an individual with a deficiency, it reflects that this individual has a problem, an internal problem. What do we mean? For example, in the dua we read on Thursday nights, one of the dua that is mustahab to be read on Thursday night, it starts with اللهم من تعبأ وأعد واستعد إلى لوفادة إلى مخلوق رجاء رفده وطلب نائلته وجائزته نائله وجائزته, along these lines, until the dua continues towards the end of the dua. You can find this dua in Mafatih. The dua then says, and you, Ya Allah, do not rush to punish. You don't rush to punish. Nor do you oppress in your punishment. Why? Because فإنما يحتاج إلى الظلم الضعيف فإنما يعجل من يخاف الفوت ويحتاج إلى الظلم الضعيف وقد تعاليت يا إلهي عن ذلك علوا كبيرا. He says, because the person who rushes, the one who rushes is one who's afraid that he will miss something. You're rushing to the majlis because you're afraid the majlis will end. A friend of you invites you and you're afraid that you're going to be late. You rush. You start speeding. You have an interview. You're running late. You rush. Why? Because you're afraid that you're going to miss it. If, however, you know that you have enough time, you don't need to rush. Take your time. So, the dua says, Ya Allah, you don't need to rush, because never will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be running out of time. And also, he says, you never oppress. Why? Because one who oppresses is someone who's weak. any oppressor you find in dunya, in this world, any tyrant, it's general. You find this tyrant is actually a coward, is weak. Strip this tyrant of his mercenaries or his people, his soldiers, and let him come into the battlefield by himself, and then see what he is like. One of the individuals we see today, in this day and age, in fact today, only today in the news, he's saying, I will fight to the last minute. His sons are gone. Now he's missing. They don't know where he is. His whereabouts. This person who used to shout that, I'm the brave man, I'm the brave man. Now that the mercenaries are gone, the soldiers are also disappearing, he also went into ghaiba as well. He also went in hiding. So where are all these slogans and all these chants? Yes, when he had everything around him, yes. But once he's all alone, that's it. So that sign of oppression, tyranny, is actually a sign of a deficiency in the character. There's something wrong in the character. Same thing when you find someone with arrogance, somebody who's arrogant. And you have those in the society at all levels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. The human being will start becoming arrogant the minute he finds himself independent and needless. The more money he gets, for example, how much money he has $10, you'll find his arrogance is with the equivalent of $10. He has 1,000, his arrogance equivalent to 1,000. He's got 1,000,000, again 1,000,000, and so on and so forth. Fir'aun is not just an example in history. There are many Fir'auns in the world today. Many. But they don't have the leadership of Egypt. Give them the kingdom of Egypt and they'll do the same thing as Fir'aun did. But they don't have it. So what does he become a Fir'aun over? He become a Fir'aun over his wife. He become a Fir'aun over his children. That's the capacity he's got. He becomes a Fir'aun over his employees at work. Over his servant. Now in this country we don't have servants, but in some countries they have servants. And you find the way that they deal with these servants. That is the Fir'aun. That's his capacity. That is his power. That is a sign of what? A deficiency. There is a deficiency in his character. The hadith states, ما تواضع إلا رفيع وما تكبر إلا حقير. A person who shows modesty and humbleness comes only with this individual who's got modesty, who's got a higher character. On the contrary, a person who shows arrogance, it is the exact opposite. A person who has no character, no respect of whatsoever. That is a person who has the arrogance. Now if we come to the character of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, and let's take a look at his character, and let's see how great he was. When it comes to dealing with people, when it comes to dealing with his servant, when it comes to dealing with women, let us take a look at this great man and compare his great character with that of ours, and let's see, where do we stand? Or let's compare our character with this great personality and see where do we stand. One day, a guest comes to visit him in his house. This guest comes with his son, a father and a son. They come to visit Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahum salli. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam brings them food. He himself goes and brings the food and puts it down, prepares it for them. Then he takes the jug of water. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He takes the jug of water and he sits in front of his guest, in front of the father. And he tells him, extend your arms, extend your hands so I can wash your hands for you. The man starts telling him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what are you doing? What is this, you wash my hands? He told him, no, it's okay. Calm down. Relax. You're not sitting in front of a king. I'm a person just like you. So relax. Let me wash your hands. So the man feels shy. He extends his hands, but he's not comfortable. He's not feeling comfortable. The riwayah says muttarib. Muttarib means not comfortable. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam tells him again, he says, why are you not comfortable? Relax. It's okay. Don't be so uncomfortable. Relax. He washes his hands himself. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib washes the hands of his guests. And then he turns to his son Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyya. He says, son, go and wash the hands of his son. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not wanted to show that there is a difference between the father and the son, that the father must be respected, I would have also washed the hands of the son. But I washed the hands of the father, and now you, my son, wash the hands of his son. So the son washes the hand of the son. So this way there is a separation. Father is respected more. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Now imagine how many of us are willing to do that. Now I'm not saying you go and wash the hands of your guest. No, that'll be great then, mashallah. You'll find everybody coming to visit you, mashallah. Wash their hands, massage maybe a little bit as well. But these signs of modesty are things that we need to carry in our lives. Ibn Abbas one day comes to him on his way to Siffin, and we've heard this riwayah many times. When he finds him fixing his sandal, he used to patch his sandal, fix it. It would tear, he would patch it again. And he would tell Ibn Abbas, Ya Ibn Abbas, how much is this worth? He told him, it's worthless, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. This sandal of yours, if you put it in the market, no one will buy it. He said, it's better to me, the sandal, than your khilafah, unless I establish justice. I establish justice. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Khalifa of the Muslims, who had both the materialistic khilafah, as a Khalifa, he had everything. The wealth, the money, if he wanted to take money, he could have. And he had the divine khilafah, the imamah as well. The religious khilafah. Yet he used to wear patched clothes. He would patch his clothes. Now in this day and age, maybe somebody would not be socially accepted if he were to patch his clothes and walk with patched clothes. But there are other ways of displaying modesty. How many people would be willing to come and serve in the community, volunteer, serve chai, distribute tea? A person would say, no, I'm a businessman, this is not my job. Other people, those young people, let them do whatever. That is a sign of displaying modesty, when a person himself goes and serves. Cleaning the masjid, cleaning this place, taking a vacuum cleaner and cleaning it. That is a sign of modesty. The garbage can, the trash, taking it outside, for example, that's a sign of modesty. In this day and age, these are things that one can do. If you go to some parts of the world where there are poor people in the masjid, I've been to some parts of the world where there are people who are poor. They come to the masajid. Here we don't see them. It's not quite clear. We don't have such poor people. There in that part of the world, in some parts of the world, you see them. Their clothes, the way they appear. And I have seen some people, and unfortunately this mentality is carried. Unfortunately, that disease is carried. This lack of deficiency, or this deficiency in the character. It's carried even here. I've seen some people who attend these mosques, why do these people come here? Why do they come here? We will build them another center. Let them go to that center. That's what he's saying. I heard it myself with my own ears. There's someone telling me. I told him this attitude is the attitude of Quraysh. Quraysh told the same thing to the Prophet. He told him, leave those poor people. Who are these Ammar and those Bilal and those nobodies? Leave them. And we will become believers. We'll become Muslims like you. Just have it as a club, elite, for us. You want Abu Jahl, for example, to sit next to his servant, to his slave, Bilal? That doesn't work. That was their objection. The same mentality until today. This I heard only a couple years ago, I'm not talking about, last century or something. Couple years ago. People have this mentality, and some of them carry this mentality. That is a mentality which shows that the character itself has a deficiency. There's a problem in the character. That character has a problem. One goes and sits down and eats with them. What's wrong? Amir المؤمنين عليه salam used to go to the market and buy 2 shirts. The expensive one he would give to Qambar, his slave, his servant. And the cheaper one he wears himself. Qambar says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're the Khalifa. People want to see you wearing the best clothes. He tells him, Ya Qambar, what I'm wearing right now is good enough. But you are a young man, you're a youth. And you have this desire of buying the best clothes, having the best clothes. You have this in you. You're a young man. You take this clothes. I will take the other one. Now, in order to accommodate this, it reflects the personality and the character of this man. How many of us can do that? When it comes to bringing something to the masjid, we find which is the worst thing that we have, and then I go and take it. Something I don't want, and I go get it. Something, what is the cheapest brand? What is the least expensive something? That's where the one we go normally. If there are 2 shirts, I'll see which one I less desire, and I go gift it to my mu'min brother. I'll take it to him as a gift. I don't like this one, so I'll give it to him as a gift. Let him have it. And then he takes it and he gives it on to another gift, Until one day the gift goes back to the same guy and says, SubhanAllah, this is the same one. But that attitude shows the greatness of the character. How great the character is. That's how great a person can be. The more modest, the more humble a person is, the more elevated he will be, the greater his character is. So be aware that every fault or every problem and every action you see from an individual, that is not a great action. Somebody who is not generous, stingy. Someone who is not modest, arrogant. And so on and so forth. These characteristics, they all indicate a lack, a deficiency in the character of that individual. There's a problem here. This person has a psychological problem. Now the degree varies. Some people, mashallah, everything is messed up here. Others, no, it varies. So that varies. The more the person perfects that personality, the closer he will come to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And that's what Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam refers to when he tells Kumail, Ya Kumail, إن هذه القلوب أوعية وخيرها أوعاها. That these hearts, have capacities, and the best of them is the one that can contain the most, has the biggest capacity. Otherwise, where in history do you find a man who comes to his enemies, people who have fought against him in the battle of Jamal? It is said 13,000 individuals got killed from the ladies' camp. From her camp, 13,000 individuals. And from Imam, it is said about 1,000. And other narrations, even more. Some say 17,000. Some say more than 20,000 people got killed in total in that battle of Al-Jamal. This lady who is known or nicknamed as المؤمنين, المؤمنين, she brought her children to the battle, and 13,000 of them at least got killed. Who's responsible for these 13,000 people? Interestingly, they say she used to memorize 40,000 hadith. She used to memorize 40,000 hadith. You know, one of the sheikhs, one of the poets, Sheikh Kadhim al-Azri, he says, حفظت من كتاب حفظت 40,000 حديثا ومن الذكر الحكيم آية تنساها. حفظت من الحديث 40,000 ومن الذكر آية تنساها. Which آية؟ آية وقرن في بيوتكن. الآية هاي نستها. 40,000 حديث تحفظ. The poet says she memorizes 40,000 hadith, but she forgets one ayah from the Quran. The ayah that says stay at home and do not leave the house. That ayah she forgets about. But she memorizes 40,000 hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, after the Hajj, Hajjatul Wada', he told his wives, he said, this is the final time you leave your homes after me. Khalas. Once we finish this Hajj, you stay at home. Al-Hasir, he said that word. The Hasira, which is basically the straws. You know that people, they didn't have rugs in the Prophet's house. They had straws. They used to sit on the straws. He said, you sit on that straw. Khalas ba'ad. That's your place. Don't leave. And she came to Salama and she told her, let's go, let's rise against him. Salama said, do you remember the day when Ali was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet was discussing something in privacy with him, and you were so annoyed and irritated, you wanted to go and invade them, invade their privacy. I told you don't. You didn't listen to me. Do you remember? And then you went inside, you invaded their privacy. Shortly you came back crying. I told you what happened. You told me the Prophet got angry at me. I went inside and I told him, Ya Ali, this is my day with the Prophet, and now you're invading this day of mine. You're intruding on my day with the Prophet. The Prophet became angry at her and he said, go back. He is of me. And whomever fights against him is fighting against me. Ali is of me. Go back. And you came back crying. Do you remember that day? She said, yes, I remember. She told her, do you remember the time when the Prophet told us to stay at home and not to leave the house? For when we leave the house, one of us, the dogs in the place that is known as Hawab, will come barking after her. And she will be leading Al-Fi'atul Baghiya, the group that is misleading, the group that is transgressor. She'll be the one. And he put his hand on your back and he said, Iyaki an takuniha ya Humayra. Oh young lady, he told her, he put his hand on your back and he told you, oh young lady, because she was young. Oh young lady, don't you be the one. Do you remember that? She said, yes, but we have to establish this. We have to establish justice. And she goes and fights, with 13,000 people getting killed in that battle at the very least. Now Amir al-Mu'mineen stands on this lady, having won, and 13,000 people or 20,000 people got killed now. How would he react? You tell me, brothers and sisters, throughout history, find someone who won a battle, a victorious, one of those brave knights. What did he do with his enemies? Because that anger kind of creates this animosity against this other individual. Never mind an enemy. Sometimes the children in the house, our children. Sometimes you find your child, he irritates you so much that you become so angry at this child, you just feel like, beating this child, destroying this child. This is your child, your own son. That anger overtakes you, overcomes. About a decade ago, or more than a decade ago, there was an incident in one of the Muslim countries where again a child was 3 years old, crying. So the mother, she pushed that child. She pushed her daughter. She pushed her hard. The daughter hit a wall, started bleeding, and died. It happened. She lost her temper. And then she was arrested. And the mother tried to commit suicide in the prison for what she had done. She killed her own daughter. That's anger. That happens. So imagine an enemy. Yet he stands there and he tells her, ما أنصفك الذين أبرزوك إذ صانوا حلائلهم أو ما أنصفك الذين أخرجوك إذ صانوا حلائلهم وأبرزوك. They were not just to you by doing this to you. They protected their women and they brought you to the battlefield. And he turned to his companion Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and he said, go look after your sister and make sure she's all right. And he sends her back with all dignity and respect. And Marwan ibn al-Hakam, Marwan, he comes to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, tells them, can you please ask your father to forgive me? And he tells him, yes. He tells him, but you'll continue making trouble. You will continue to be a troublemaker, but go. That's Marwan. Where do you find this personality? This requires a huge capacity. And that capacity is found in Amir al-Mu'mineen. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. That capacity is found in those who follow the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen to different degrees. When Malik, somebody hit him with a pit of the date, and he forgives him, that requires a capacity. Malik had that capacity. Whereas some people in the community, for example, you find they won't be able to accommodate one word. You tell them one word, they'll blow in your face. They'll erupt like a volcano. Who are you to speak to me like this? What is this? That reflects their capacity. Very, very little capacity. That's how much they have. That's how much it is. Whereas the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Ahlul Bayt, their capacity is great. The greater the capacity, the more a person has learned from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The more a person humbles himself for the sake of Allah, the more this individual understands the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. There is a saying that says, Sayyidul Qawm Khadimuhum. The leader of a group or a tribe is the one who serves them the most. The leader should serve his community the most. The leader in the house should serve his people, should serve his house. I wish the leaders in some of the Muslim countries would listen to this and apply it. It's the other way around. That capacity is very important. There was a Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri. Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri, he established the Hawza in Qom. The Hawza right now that you see in Qom, where thousands of ulama have come from it, graduated, this was established by this Sheikh. So every person who goes and studies in that Hawza, he gets the thawab. He established that Hawza, that Islamic seminary. This sheikh, although he was al-marji' al-a'la, but in his days, people were doing his taqleed. He was a great marji'. He had a wife who was blind and paralyzed. A blind wife and a paralyzed wife. She's paralyzed. Both blind and paralyzed. He used to take care of her. And at night when it was hot, he would carry her on his back to the roof. And they would sleep on the roof of the house. And for years, he took care of his wife. That requires a capacity. That requires a capacity. Many people would say, forget it. مع السلامة, خلاص, go. Or to make her feel pleased a little bit, I'll go marry a second wife so she take care of you. You know. As-Sayyid al-Burujardi, he was about from a century ago. Maybe some of your grandfathers may have done his taqleed. Ayatollah Burujardi, grand alim of his days. He took a promise. He made a promise to himself. He said, I will never become angry, no matter what happens. Never. Khalas. And he never became angry. No matter what happens, he would never get angry. How? He was not a ma'soom. He's not infallible. He's just like you and I. But had capacity. He had the capacity. He learned from Ahlul Bayt, from Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he reads the history of Amir al-Mu'mineen, how he forgave his enemies. He says, how can I not forgive people? He forgives. That's why when we read history, we should read it with analytical history, with an analytical mind. Not just read the riwayah. Amir al-Mu'mineen used to help the poor. Okay. How? How can I apply this in my life? A lady he finds carrying something, some load that is heavy load. He comes and he helps her. And he tells her, lady, where is your husband? She said, he was killed with Ali ibn Abi Talib. And Ali did not look after me. He said, oh, let me help you then. He takes it to her house. The next day he brings her a bag of flour and some dates. He knocks at her door. She opens the door. Who is this? He said, I'm your companion from yesterday. I brought you some flour and dates. He gives her the flour and the dates. He sees that she has some orphans, some children. He says, what would you like me to do? Would you like me to go bake the flour, make it into bread, or look after the kids, babysit them? She said, I know my kitchen better than you, so I will look after my kitchen. You look after my kids. You babysit. He said, let me ignite it for you, that oven, which used to use wood. He ignited that and he said, Ya Ali, remember the fire of the Akhirah. That's why sometimes, brothers and sisters, when your finger gets burnt with hot water or something hot you carry, remember the fire of the Akhirah. Amir al-Mu'mineen refers to this in one of his sermons. He says, if you cannot bear that little fire of dunya, how can you bear the fire of the Akhirah, you human? So hasn't it time come for you to wake up? To pay your huquq, your khums, your zakat, to watch your akhlaq, watch your tongue. To our sisters to wear the hijab. Hasn't the time come? You can't bear that fire of dunya. What about the akhirah? Then he came back, started feeding the children dates himself. And this was when he was the Khalifa of the Muslims. Imam Ali was not, free. Had nothing better in his life to do. The Khalifa. He feeds them. The lady had a neighbor. Her neighbor saw the smoke coming from the house. She rushed to her neighbor's house. She said, are you okay? Everything is okay? She said, yes, alhamdulillah. This nice man, Ali ibn Abi Talib, forgot about me, but this nice man remembers me. He remembered me, and he is bringing me all these goods. She looked at him, which nice man? He said, this man who's playing with my children. She saw him. He's taking the dates, feeding it into the mouth of the children, and he tells them, he says, pray to Allah to forgive Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, who has that capacity? How many of us have that capacity? The lady told her, do you know who this man is? She said, no, but he's a nice man. قالت لها ويحك هذا علي بن أبي طالب أمير المؤمنين. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen. You say Ali is forgotten about you, he's in your house feeding your children. She came to him apologizing, sorry ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I didn't know who you are. This is the Khalifa of the Muslims in Kufa, and people don't know who he is. Imagine the way he is, because he was one of them. He was one of the people. He did not walk in a limousine with 10 bodyguards around him. No one can talk to him. Simple life. So people didn't even know he was the Khalifa. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, how many of us have that capacity? That is the capacity we talk about, brothers and sisters. The capacity of the manners and the akhlaq that we have to perfect from today. That comes from understanding who Ali ibn Abi Talib was or is. Learning the history of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then not just listening to the lectures and coming from this ear and leaving from that ear. No. How can I apply my modesty in ways that is acceptable in the society? How can I serve people in my community? And when a person does this, believe me, his respect will grow. Especially if he does it for the sake of Allah, not just for the sake of earning people's respect. Depends on what the niyyah will be. You will earn people's respect, but the niyyah is different. But doing it for the sake of Allah, serving people with food. Who cares of my social status? Even if I'm the richest man in the world, I'll help people. This is what I can do with my ability. Some people travel to poor countries and they serve for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month. They try to give help in any way, shape or form they can. This is the way of them showing their modesty, their tawadu'. Some people come and build themselves. They get their clothes dirty for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who cares? I remember a few years ago, we met a professor of physics. One of the mu'mineen was a professor of physics in one of the cities in the world. A professor of physics who was well established. Well established. Somebody one day pointed at him. He told me, see this man? I told him, yes. He was carrying screwdrivers all around the belt, wearing with screwdrivers, going in the mosque, and he was tightening screws and building and doing this in the masjid. He said, you see this man? I told him, yes. He said, this man is a professor of physics, sir. He's a professor. And he's well established in his field. But look at him. You can't even tell. Another man who's a dentist, who's written books, well respected in his field, also a professor. Comes, sits, serves. You look at him, you don't even tell what his profession is. You can't tell. This is the capacity people have. That capacity they learn from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. When people learn from Ahlul Bayt, that's the capacity. How much capacity do we have? This is Ali ibn Abi Talib with the way he used to clothe himself. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib, the way that he used to deal with his servant. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib, the way he used to deal with the ladies in Kufa. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib, the way he used to deal with his enemies. Look at that capacity. And where do you find such a capacity in the world other than Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih? Where do we stand, brothers and sisters? Where is our capacity? Where is our akhlaq? Where is it? How come we can't help, we can't serve, we can't stand the word being said? How come we continue to do ghiba, to have animosity against another individual, a mu'min who prays and fasts, but I don't like him? Because he comes from a certain city or because he's less off than me. I've been here longer, I know more about this world than he does. This is our attitude, unfortunately. That attitude of the man who said, let's build them a mosque and let them go to that mosque. That attitude exists within capacities, within certain If you give those people that ability, they'll do the same thing Abu Jahl did. The same thing. But he knows in Canada he cannot do that. He'll be branded as a racist. People will sue him. So to whatever capacity he can, he will do that. He'll use this psychology. He'll use his deficiency, his problem. But Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, and Ahlul Bayt, they have achieved that status and that capacity where even their enemies would cry for them. Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, when he died, believe it or not, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, Marwan, this man who fought against Ahlul Bayt from day one, he was seen walking behind his janazah, his body, and crying, Marwan. People were shocked. They came to Marwan, they told him, you walk behind Imam al-Mujtaba and you're crying after all that you had done to him? All this animosity, you fought against his father in Jamal, you fought against him, himself. And all this hate, and now you're crying? He said, how can I not cry about a man whose forbearance, hilm, cannot be even weighed by the mountains? This man, al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, his hilm, yuwazil jibal. How can I not cry for a man whose forbearance, for his patience with his enemies is greater than the mountains? Even his enemy was crying for him. Why? That shows you his capacity. The capacity he had. That's Ahlul Bayt. How about us? What is our capacity? When we turn our back, people say, Ya Allah, make a rock fall on his head and kill him and let us finish with him, Ya Akhi, Ya Allah. This person. Destroy him. Because every time he comes and says, I object, I protest. The path, I don't want it. It's either my way or the highway. That's the capacity. You tell him, Ya Akhi, or you tell this lady, this is not the way things to be done. Who are you to speak to me? What do you know? We were the people who established everything. We did this, we did that, we. Did you do it for Allah or for yourself? What is the capacity? One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen saw Qambar in the market. Somebody came and insulted Qambar, his servant. Qambar was about to retaliate, to also insult him back. Amir al-Mu'mineen immediately called him. He said, Ya Qambar, wait. Be patient. Kun haliman. Have the forbearance, Ya Qambar. And keep quiet and ignore your enemy. Ignore this individual. Because being patient is most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll please Allah. And being quiet most displeases shaitan. Shaitan gets really annoyed when a person keeps quiet. Somebody is insulting you and you keep quiet. Shaitan is very irritated. He wants that fire to ignite. He wants the war to go ignite. But you keep quiet. And your enemy, nothing will burn him and discipline him more than you being quiet. He is erupting like a volcano and you're quiet like an ice cube. The guy is just yelling and shouting and you're just, he will become more angry. He says, so, 3 birds with 1 stone. Have patience, khalas. Don't respond back to him. You'll become angry, you'll frustrate yourself, and you'll disobey Allah, you'll displease Allah, you'll please shaitan. Why? Have that patience, have that capacity. You'll please Allah, you'll displease shaitan, and your enemy will be disciplined. That guy will be disciplined. That requires a capacity. A capacity. How many of us have that capacity? And that's why when Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi was struck, and when he left this dunya, people were moved. When he went to that masjid, Masjid al-Kufa,
Abdul Rahman came, and two other people from the Kharijites. One said, I will go kill Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. One said, I will go kill Amr ibn al-As. And the third one, Abdul Rahman, said, I will go kill Ali ibn Abi Talib. And they agreed on the 19th of Ramadan. Amr ibn al-As that day did not go to Salat al-Fajr. He was not feeling well. He sent someone else. So this man goes and kills that other man, thinking that it is Amr ibn al-As. And he was saved. Muawiyah, the man goes, but in the last moment his hand shakes, and instead of stabbing him in the heart, he stabs him in his thighs. So the doctor comes, he tells him, I can cure you, but you won't have children anymore. Alhamdulillah. He said, enough, Yazid is enough. Yes, indeed, enough. Imagine if he had more than Yazid. He said, Yazid is enough. So that's it. We don't need more children. So he said, okay. So he cured him. And he was saved. But Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he went to the masjid. And this enemy of Allah came as he was praying. And you wonder, this hero of Khaybar, the lion of Badr, the lion of Uhud, the lion of the battles, he gets killed by Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam. But that's because he came to him in the state of Salat, a state where Amir al-Mu'mineen, his ruh is somewhere else, where his nafs is not in his body anymore. His nafs goes somewhere else, connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't feel what's happening in this dunya. But he approached him there. As he raised his head from the sajda, he cried that shout, saying, Al-hukmu lillah, la laka ya Ali. The leadership is to Allah, not to you, ya Ali. And he struck Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, on his head in Masjid al-Kufa, in the mihrab. This Ali ibn Abi Talib, whose life began in the Kaaba and ended in the mihrab, in the masjid. That's Ali ibn Abi Talib. He falls down calling, Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. I have won. Now some people say, where were Imam Hassan? Where were the people? Brothers and sisters, some people think that Imam Ali was killed in Salat al-Fajr. He was not killed in Salat al-Fajr. Salat al-Fajr, the mosque is overcrowded. Abdul Rahman cannot come and kill him in Salat al-Fajr. Many people are praying. It was in the Nafilah. In the Nafilah, Imam had just said the adhan. That's why people have not yet gathered. The mosque was empty at the time. He could not have killed him otherwise. And then Jibreel alayhi salam cried, and all the angels in the skies cried. It is said every rock cried, every stone cried, just like the day of Ashura. Every stone they removed, there was blood coming from underneath it. Truly, the martyrdom of Ali ibn Abi Talib was a tragedy. Because this is the man about whom the verses of the Quran were revealed. Although the same verses apply to the other Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. They're all one. But about him, it was him, the one who gave the ring while he was in the state of ruku'. He was the one. He was the one who slept in the Prophet's bed. He was the one. The ayah was revealed about him. He was the one who fought next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He was the one who carried the banner of Rasulullah. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib. So it was a great loss. He fell. And with him fell justice as well. As the saying goes, قتل العدل بقتل علي ibn Abi Talib. Adl, justice, was killed with the killing of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein came after hearing the cry of Jibreel. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى. The pillars of guidance have been torn down. Ali has been killed. So they were at home. When they heard this cry, they rushed to the masjid. And in what state did they see Ali ibn Abi Talib? The lion of the battle was covered in blood. And his beard was covered in blood. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam said to Imam al-Hassan, you lead Salat al-Fajr, and I will pray while sitting down. So he prayed from his sitting down. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam prayed Salat al-Fajr. Then Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein carried Amir al-Mu'mineen back to the house. By then the news spread, Ali has been struck in Masjid al-Kufa. And people came rushing, crying, weeping. They took him to his house. He lied down on his bed. The Shia gathered. Orphans gathered. People gathered. They said, he is our father. Where is the father of the Shia? But the father of the Shia is lying on his deathbed, ya Shia. Then he was lying on his deathbed. People gathered at his house, weeping and crying. Imam al-Hassan came out and he told people, leave. Amir al-Mu'mineen needs some time to rest. People left, except one man, a companion by the name of Al-Asbagh ibn Nabata. Asbagh said, I couldn't leave. I continued, sat there crying and weeping. Imam al-Hassan came out, told me, Ya Asbagh, didn't I tell you to leave? He said, Ya Mawla, Ya ibn Rasulullah, my feet cannot carry me. I can't without seeing my master, Amir al-Mu'mineen. That is the love of Asbagh. People left. So that the degree of love people have to Amir al-Mu'mineen. People love Asbagh. His love was greater. He couldn't leave. He sat there. How much love do we have for Amir al-Mu'mineen? Then Imam al-Hassan told him, okay, wait, Ya Asbagh. He went inside, came out, told him, come in, Ya Asbagh. Asbagh goes in. The minute he sees Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, I saw his head wrapped in a turban that was yellow. I couldn't tell the yellowness of his face from the yellow of the turban. His face was also so pale and yellow. So when I saw this, I started weeping loudly, crying. This is how the Shia should weep for their master Amir al-Mu'mineen. They should not just look here straight. They should be weeping for the death of Ali ibn Abi Talib, crying for the death of Ali ibn Abi Talib. At least showing the signs of grief for Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, Ya Asbagh, don't weep. It is indeed Jannah that I'm going for. I'm going to Jannah. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, show me your wound. He opened his imama and he saw the wound. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're the lion. You're the mountain, you're the hero, you're the brave. You took the strike of Amr ibn Nawad. This strike is another strike and you will recover. He said, no, Ya Asbagh, I will not recover from this one. I will be joining Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi in 2 days and I'm leaving you. Then Asbagh started weeping and crying. Amir al-Mu'mineen told him, Ya Asbagh, don't weep, I am going to Jannah. He said, I know you're going to Jannah, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, walakin abki li firaqika, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. I know you're going to Jannah, but I'm crying because I'll be missing you, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. When I go to Masjid al-Kufa, I won't be seeing you there anymore.
Then they call a doctor by the name of Athir or Uthair. He comes, he says, bring me arqushat, or a vein of a sheep. They bring him the vein of the sheep. He inserts it into the wound of Amir al-Mu'mineen عليه السلام. Then he removes it and looks at it. قال يا أمير المؤمنين اعهد عهدك وأوص وصيتك فإن ضربة هذا اللعين وصلت إلى أم رأسك. He said, يا أمير المؤمنين, bid your farewell and say your will, for the strike of this cursed man has reached the wound deep into your head, and you will not be saved from the poison of his sword. That's when the Shia and the family of Amir al-Mu'mineen started crying, Aywa Imama, Aywa Ali, Aywa Sayyida, Aywa Abata. Then they left Amir al-Mu'mineen عليه السلام in the state. They brought him some milk. He would drink couple sips of milk and he would say, take this milk to Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam. Make sure you feed him of the same food you feed me. And then he told Imam al-Hassan, oh my son, he struck me once, so you also strike him once. If he dies, then he dies, but if he doesn't, then you let him go. Look at the capacity of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He tells Imam al-Hassan to take care of his murderer, the one who killed him. I say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, we are your lovers, we're your Shia, take care of us as well. We are here at your gate asking for your forgiveness, for your shafa'ah, for your intercession, for you to fulfill our hajat. We are here shedding our tears for you, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then Zainab alayha salam came to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and she said, Ya Aba, حدثني بحديث أيمن. Tell me about the hadith of Ayman. She told me about what will be happening in Karbala. She told him of the story. He said, yes, oh my daughter, what she told you is true. But she forgot to tell you, and she did not tell you that you will come back to Kufa as a prisoner of Bani Umayyah. You will not have any supporter or any helper, and you will be turning to me crying, Aywa Abata wa Aliya. She started crying, Aywa Aliya, Aywa ضيعته بعدك. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam gathered his children around him. He gave them his will. Then they all surrounded him. O Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, on the 21st of Ramadan, on a day like this, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he stretched his arms and his legs and he said, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. هذا حبيبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، وهذا جبرائيل والملائكة وأبواب الجنان مفتحة. He said, this is my beloved Rasulullah standing in front of me. And here is Jibreel and the angels opening the gates of Jannah. Then he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
وفاضت روحه الطاهرة, and his soul separated from his body. Oh Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, your Imam has died. Your Imam has been killed. Your Imam left this dunya, and he left you all as his orphans. Then Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein alayhim as-salam waited until the night came. They did the will of their father, who told them, carry the rear of my body and leave the front. Jibreel and Mikael will be carrying it, and see where it will go. That will be my grave. Dig it. That is the grave that Nuh the Prophet dug for me. So they carried the body of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen in the middle of the night until the body rested at a place. Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein dug it. They saw it was written, this is the grave prepared by Nuh the Prophet for Ali, the successor of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And he was buried there. هذا ما أعده نوح النبي لعلي الوصي. They buried Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ya Shia, your Imam has been buried. Then on the way back, when they came in the middle of the night, they saw an old man weeping and crying. They approached him. They said, old man, Ya Sheikh, what is the matter? He said, every day there was a good man, a gentleman, a kind man who used to come and bring me food. But for 3 days he hasn't showed up, and I have been hungry waiting for him to arrive. Imam al-Hassan told him, Ya Shaykh, do you know who this man is? He said, no, as you can see, I am blind. But whenever he came, I used to smell a beautiful fragrance from him. Imam al-Hassan told him, smell me, Ya Shaykh, is this the fragrance? He said, yes, this is the one. He said, Ya Shaykh, that was our father Ali ibn Abi Talib, and we have just come back from burying him. That Sheikh started weeping and crying. He said, where is his grave? Take me to him. They took him to the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the first man to do the ziyarah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He threw himself on the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen and he cried, Aywa Aliyah, أيوا سيدايا، أيوا ضيعته بعدك، حتى فاضت روحه على قبر أمير المؤمنين. Until this man lost his soul on the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen عليه السلام. So Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein buried him right there and then. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Sayyid al-Wasiyin. لعن الله الذين ظلموك والذين قتلوك. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. With these eyes full of tears, O guest of Ali ibn Abi Talib, O orphans of Ali ibn Abi Talib, raise your hands for the dua all together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. أما
يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله 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 إلهي بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها اكشف عنا السوء يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين اجعلنا من شيعة أمير المؤمنين يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين ارزقنا شفاعة أمير المؤمنين في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين فرج عن شيعة أمير المؤمنين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين اقضي حوائج المؤمنين والمؤمنات يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين شافي وعافي جميع مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يا الله. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا اجزهما بالإحسان إحسانا وبالسيئات غفرانا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. إلهي بأمير المؤمنين اجعلنا من شيعة سيدنا ومولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واحفظه وارحمه وانصره نصرا عزيزا. اللهم نقسم عليك بالزهراء فاطمة إلا ما رزقتنا شفاعة الزهراء يا الله يا الله يا الله لقضاء الحوائج ولشفاء المرضى ولكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة ولتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات لا سيما أرواح أموات الجالسين والحاضرين رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة.